Hi, Shalom, greetings from Jerusalem, Jane. Tonight we are going to enter a Jewish holiday called Purim. It's a festive holiday. It's a day where we are celebrating a beautiful young Jewish girl. Her name was Hadassah. She became Queen Esther for such a time as this. My Purim story, my Purim video, my Purim message might be a little bit different than what you hear other places. Allow me to just share a little bit from my heart after living amongst the Jewish people for more than 10 years. Now imagine whatever you can face of hardship in your life. If you are living in Finland, if you are living in Venezuela, if you are living in Belgium, if you are living in America, if you're living in Brazil, Argentina, Japan, it doesn't matter where you're living. There is not one person who goes through life without hardship, without pain, without trauma. There's not one family that's not going through hardship or pain or trauma. Whether it's a nasty divorce, whether it's being sick with cancer, whether it is betrayal, it could be bankruptcy, it could be the loss of a child, the loss of a loved one. No matter what you're going through, abuse, rape, whatever you are going through of hardship that is breaking you to the core, that has you weeping on the floor or not being able to get out of the bed, whether you're sitting in Japan or in America or Denmark, no matter what you can possibly go through of horrific things in your life, no matter what that is, people are going through the same here in Israel. They are going through the same hardship, betrayal, divorce, bankruptcy, all of the things I just mentioned that you can go through around the world. Now imagine that, but on top of all of that, whatever hardship you are going through in Japan or China, wherever you are not on top of that also being told by the whole world that you are occupying the nation that you are living in, that you are occupying someone else's country, and for that reason, it's okay to murder you. For that reason, your child is being butchered in their home. Your child is being butchered or murdered, rammed down, waiting at a bus stop, or being murdered in front of a supermarket, being shot sitting in a bus. The most horrific terror attacks you can possibly imagine. Buses are blowing up, cafes are being blown up, people are being stoned in their vehicles, which has just happened 3 days in a row, and a toddler was actually injured here in Israel. Rockets are flying in, thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of rockets are flying in, trying to murder you. So you have to run for your life into bomb shelters. Old ladies living on the 7th floors, living on the 4th floors, not having stairs, not being able to come to a bomb shelter. Bringing your toddlers out in the middle of the night, running for cover because numerous countries are firing missiles, drones, rockets. They want to kill you just for you being Jewish, living in your own country. Your leaders are being named as war criminals when they are just defending yourself and your country. And then you have to watch millions of people walking in the streets all across the world calling for the annihilations of you and your wife and your children, your grandchildren. Watching them walking in the streets calling for support of modern day Nazis, calling for support for Hamas, which are modern day Nazis, not for hostages to be released after your people have gone through the Holocaust, the horrors of the Holocaust, and they came back and prophecies were fulfilled, and the Jewish people came home to their ancestral homelands with connection for thousands of years. The biggest onslaught on the Jewish people happened in Israel. And you have to watch people glorify that, celebrate that. And on top of that, the world expects you to show restraint and to feed your enemies and to give water and electricity to the people who is cheering when your people are being murdered. So no matter what hardship you're going through around the world, you don't also have to endure that. Can you imagine? No, you can't. Unless you live here, you can't. But for such a time as this, you, the good, loving, history, understanding, and especially Christian, Bible-believing people who understand the truth, the fact, the history, you are obligated for such a time as this to stand up and speak up for Queen Esther's people, the Jewish people, who is constantly has to defend their own existence, who constantly has to defend their right to live in this nation, who has to defend that they are demolishing the homes of terrorists who have murdered Jews, who has to watch your government around the world pouring hundreds of millions of dollars into arch-terrorists, Abu Mazen, Mahmoud Abbas, terrorist in a suit, who is paying the vile terrorist who is murdering Jewish children. And in order for their precious innocent civilians and soldiers who was kidnapped and dragged into the dungeons in Gaza, Israel has to release, in order to get civilians home, Israel has to release cold-blooded terrorists who blew up cafes, who blew up buses, who have murdered Jews in the most heinous way. And the world don't even mention that. They're talking about Palestinian prisoners, not sharing the stories of the gruesome terror attacks they have committed. Where is the moral compass for the rest of the world on Purim 2025 when there are still hostages left inside Gaza being brutalized, tortured, starved, and all the world is care about is that Israel said, well, we are not going to bring in water and we are not going to bring in aid to these modern day Nazis, who, by the way, have more than enough aid because Hamas stole it. But that's more important for the world than for the hostages who are still held inside Israel, or for all the families who is mourning the lost one, for all the families who has lost a precious one in terror attacks even before October 7 and terror attacks after October 7. We had one yesterday where terrorists were firing into the vehicle of an 18-year-old man who was shot in his arm. Where is the moral compass for the rest of the world in Purim 25? So again, let me repeat, whatever trauma, hardship, devastation, grief you are going through, people are going through the same here in Israel. But on top of that, they have all the rest to deal with. Let that sink in for just a moment. Because unless you live here, you can't imagine what it's like. So for such a time as this, we are called to comfort my people, and to stand united with Israel, the nation that God singled out through all the nations. He put the boundaries down. He put the borders down. He put his name down on this piece of land. Jerusalem, the eternal capital. God said, I will plant them here, never to be uprooted again. But that's what the world wants. They want to divide the Holy Land. They want to touch the apple of God's eye. And they are okay with the murder and the slaughter of the Jewish people. Rocket, shooting, ramming, stabbing, axe attack, machete attacks, bombings, you name it, it happens here. And the world has more sympathy for Nazi, modern day Nazi, and their supporters. Shame on you. So for such a time as this, my name is Jerusalem Jane. I'm a Danish advocate and Zionist standing with Israel, living in Jerusalem for more than 10 years. being tremendously blessed to be here. And I want to encourage you on this Purim, stand with Israel, stand for truth, stand for justice, come against the lies. When you see that your government are supporting Abu Mazen, terrorist in a suit, when you see your government are supporting UNRWA, sending money down to this Hamas terrorist organization who is doing nothing but indoctrinating their children and educating them how to become the next Hamas terrorist and how to become the next suicide bomber, because that's the fact. So Queen Esther, for such a time as this, Purim, they celebrate that the Jewish people were saved. Queen Esther rose up, she spoke up on behalf of her people, and they were saved. Haman was hanged in the gallows that he had intended for Mordecai. You can read about this in the Bible, the Book of Esther. For such a time as this, you will see the Jewish people are dressing up in costumes and they are celebrating the survival of the Jewish people. And that's what's going to happen over the weekend now. There's going to be many different events. There's going to actually be a parade in Jerusalem on Sunday. So downtown Jerusalem is shutting off and no train and bus and all of that. If you can, come to Jerusalem for that event. So for such a time as this, you be a Queen Esther around the world, and you stand up for truth and justice and for what is right. And you stand up for Israel for such a time as this, because God created this nation to be a blessing, to be a light amongst the nations, because this is his nation. And that's where a lot of people are going wrong when they think Israel is all about politics. Israel is not a political issue. Israel is a biblical issue, because this is God's nation. And the Jewish people are his people. And he made an eternal covenant. Eternal means forever. You don't break it, you don't take it back. The Jewish people with God is owning this little piece of land that the whole world is going bonkers to separate and call occupied, when in fact Israel liberated land that was occupied after the wars. Chag Sameach, Happy Purim, a little different message from Jerusalem Jane here on Purim 2025, but united we stand with Israel. Chag Sameach, Chag Purim Sameach. Love you, Israel. Bye.